Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Manitoba Start is the leading provider of career services to newcomers in the province of Manitoba and connects businesses to a world-class workforce. I would like to welcome you all to this Labor Market Connection webinar, a series of live broadcasted events designed to assist you in entering the Manitoba labor market. To begin, Manitoba Start operates from Treaty 1 territory, the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene people, and homeland of Métis people. We acknowledge that our water is sourced from Shoal Lake 41st Nation. Acknowledging this truth is important, yet only a small part in cultivating strong relationships with Indigenous communities. Today's webinar is focusing on the Canadian manufacturers and exporters. My name is Eda Can. I am Labor Market Connections Coordinator here at Manitoba Start, and I will be your host for today's webinar.
Bonjour tout le monde, je m'appelle Rabha Mazer et je travaille pour Manitoba Start en tant que traductrice en français et je serai ici pour vous aider avec toutes les questions que vous aurez. Merci et bienvenue encore.
Given the large number of participants who joined this webinar, we have muted your microphone to allow for better clarity and less interference. Before we begin, I will be going over a couple of housekeeping items. You can use the raised hand feature to indicate that you have a question or comment. To do this, you can click on the Participants button in the meeting controls, find the raised hand icon next to your name and click on it. This will notify us that we have a raised hand. Teams webinar provide a Q&A feature that allows attendees to ask questions specifically in the Q&A panel. To access this, click on the More Options, 3 dots button in the meeting controls and select Q&A. You can then type your question in the Q&A panel. Before I introduce our presenter for today, I would like to run a few polls to get to know you better. So the first poll asks, are you registered with Manitoba Start? Yes or no? I will give you a moment to answer. "100% said yes. And on our second poll, do you need help with your resume, cover letter, or interview preparation? Yes or no? I will give you a moment to answer. "50% said yes and 50% said no. On our third poll today, where are you joining us from today? Northern Manitoba, Southern Manitoba, Winnipeg, outside of Canada? I'll give you a moment to answer. "100% said Winnipeg. And on our last poll today asks, what is your reason for attending this webinar? Are you an internationally educated professional, settlement worker, career coach, or other? Again, I will give you a moment to answer. 83% said internationally educated professional and 17% said settlement worker. Thank you everyone for participating in the polls. Today's webinar is with the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters. Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters is a leading trade and industry association that represents the interest of manufacturers and exporters across Canada. Their mission is to help Canadian manufacturers compete globally and grow their business through advocacy, workforce development, and providing valuable resources and insights. They work closely with government, industry partners, and educational institutions to drive innovation, improve productivity, and create a skilled workforce that meets the demands of the modern manufacturing sector. This session will cover It will provide participants with an accessible introduction to the Canadian manufacturing sector, and we will explore what manufacturing is, the diverse career opportunities available, and give a broad overview of the sector's importance to Canadian economy. The presentation will focus on practical information and insights on potential pathways into manufacturing careers. So please welcome Mitchell Defer from Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters. Over to you, Mitchell.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to presenting to you all. I'm just going to get my screen. I'm going to share my screen here, I think. Let's check this out. Can you all see the expanded version of my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. Actually, give me a second here. Oh, now it's gone. All right, 1 second here. All right, this should work. Perfect. So yeah, I am here from the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters. A little bit about CME. So before I get to that, we'll do our agenda. So we're going to do an introduction to manufacturing. We're going to talk about what it is, what types of things are manufactured in Canada, and then we'll talk about some career opportunities and hopefully have some time for a Q&A at the end. So you heard a little bit about what CME is and what we do. Basically, in the most general sense, we're the voice of manufacturers in Manitoba, and CME is run by manufacturers for manufacturers, which means that they are our members. So companies are members of us, and we try to relay their interests to different people in government or other types of stakeholders. So we help companies make products at home and showcase them on the world stage. These are our core values. So our core values are innovation, growth, integrity, and trust, as well as influence. So we try to always do things with innovation by encouraging people to invest in technology, and so that we can remain competitive and prosperous. And we hopefully try to grow the manufacturing industry so that there's lots more investment and that there will be more jobs available. And for integrity and trust, we like to say that we use the interests of our members using data that we get from surveys, and so that we're articulating those things in our mission. And then with influence, we try to advocate for the things that our members are interested in to various people in governments to influence policies that help our manufacturers grow. But before we talk anymore, we got to talk about what is manufacturing. So I know you're all muted right now, but I'll give you a couple of seconds just to think to yourself, when you think of manufacturing, there might be a few things that come to your mind right away. So think about what some of those things are, and then we'll talk a little bit more about definition of manufacturing and all the different ways the things that we use are manufactured. So maybe you've thought of a few things already. Some of you may think of words like making things or a production line or putting things together, and those would all be really great answers to what is manufacturing. This is one definition here. It's not the only one, there's many other ones, but it's basically the process of taking different materials and creating a new product by hand or equipment. And so you might think of things like cars or furniture, but it's also things like shoes, French fries, and hockey skates. So it's anytime you have different pieces of something, different parts, components, and you're putting them together to make something new. So for some people, if you do beadwork, or if you're doing other things like making a sweater by knitting or crocheting, you're taking a raw material and a product, and you're using tools to make something new that didn't exist before, and it wouldn't have existed if you didn't use those tools or your skills to make it. So that's manufacturing. So you think of things like cars and airplanes, but it's also things like making clothes, and even food manufacturing is a type of manufacturing as well. So this picture here is meant to represent sort of the process of manufacturing. So you can see right in the center there is a big light bulb. And so the light bulb is meant to represent an idea. So all things that are made, first someone thinks about, I should make this thing, or maybe the world maybe things would be a little bit easier if I made it a product. So it begins with an idea, which is what the light bulb is. And then at the top, you can see, on the top right, you can see different boxes that are arriving to warehouses. So that's over here, you can see they're arriving in, and that represents the procurement or the receiving of supplies that you need to make your product. So this is obviously a factory, but if you think about something you might make at home, maybe it looks like these items arriving to your apartment or to your house or where you're living. So these are the materials that you need to make the product that you're hoping to produce, the raw materials. And then we can see that over here, there's people maybe working on small tables. They're doing different iterations. And we could say maybe these people are prototyping. So they're receiving the product and they're making sure that the idea all checks out, that it is possible to make a lot of this product. So they might be doing some different tests and things like that. If you were doing it in your home, maybe you would order a small number, a little sheen or a little bit of yarn if you were trying to crochet a hat. And first you want to see, well, can I do this? How long does it take? And then once you get that all figured out, you might order more. So the scale of these things can be really different. Sometimes it can be for making cars, but it can also be for making hats and other things like that. So that's where they're making different prototypes. They might be checking it out. And then the rest of this process, we see here some larger machines. We can see things that are meant to be like conveyor belts, and there's some more light bulbs and gears. And these might represent a bustling factory floor. Lots of things are going on, the machines are being used, and the product is being made. So there's different people who are working, operating the machines, they're assembling the products. And then at the end here, we can see there's some trucks with boxes on it. And this represents the product leaving the warehouse or facility. Maybe it looks like you going to the mail station to mail your product to a customer. So this is sort of just an example of what a manufacturing process could look like. It begins with an idea, then you have to get your products, you got to test it out, see if it works, and then you got to send it off to wherever it is your customer is located. And there's lots of different types of jobs within all of those steps, and also lots of smaller steps involved in one of those larger steps. So in manufacturing in Manitoba, we make a lot of different things here in Manitoba. So here you can see some moccasins. This is a food truck, so International Truck Body. They make food trucks and they send them all across Canada and to the US. So if you're ordering food from a food truck, even if you're in the US ordering, it might have been made here in Manitoba. And here you can see there's some French fries. So McCain's is here in Manitoba and they make food. So just in the same way where you would make a shoe or a truck, to make a French fry, you're taking a raw material, which is a potato, and you're using tools and machines to make something new out of it. Maybe you have a machine that applies some seasoning or other things like that. So making French fries is also manufacturing. This is a couch here, so you're assembling a couch. Might have to order stuff from a mill, a wood mill, to make the the pieces of the furniture, and then you have to put it together. Hockey skates. This is, you could say, a tractor. So lots of agricultural or farming equipment is made here in Manitoba, because there's lots of people who use it in Manitoba to farm all of the things that we eat. And here you can see there's an airplane. So there are companies like Boeing and Standard Aero and Magellan who all work in the aerospace manufacturing industry. This here is a block of cheese. So you might think of Bothwell cheese, which is in New Bothwell. That's also a food manufacturer. And then here you can see a fire truck. So Fort Garry Fire Trucks, they make fire trucks all across Canada and the US. And then of course here it's currency. So the mint, they make money. So all of these things are manufactured. You're taking raw materials, you're using machines or people to create something different than existed before. So if you had a hard time understanding manufacturing, all of these things we make right here in Manitoba, and all of these places could potentially be somewhere that you work. So these are some name brands that are here in Manitoba that are manufacturers. Some of them you might recognize. If you ever look at a city bus, you can see, I think it's on the bottom left, the New Flyer logo. So they make buses here in Winnipeg, and they of course go all across Canada, but also into the US as well. Maybe if you go to the grocery store, you might see Be Made Honey. They make that in Winnipeg as well. Maybe you want to buy some furniture, you might recognize Palliser. So all of these are different companies, and there are many more that are involved in manufacturing, and they all make very different things. So Friesens, they do printing, so like yearbooks. I think they even printed one of the Harry Potter books. Farmery is beer. Canada Goose, they make clothing. And there's many, many others that make all sorts of different types of things. Canadian Craft Paper, the paper that you might write on, was made there, and then there's some aerospace ones up here. Monarch, they make hydraulic cylinders. So if you're seeing machines that use hydraulics, then they might use some of those. So all of these are companies in Manitoba, and there are many more that manufacture, but here's just a brief snapshot to say there's lots of different companies, and there's lots of different types of things that are manufactured. So there's lots of different types of jobs in those places. There's only 2 graphs in here, so don't worry if that's not what you're into. This just is meant to show manufacturing contribution to employment as a percent of the total employment. So in the red, this means that in all these provinces here, these are jobs that people are directly working in manufacturing. And then you can see there's a gray bar, and that in some cases is a lot bigger than the red. And those represent spin-off jobs or indirect jobs that are from it. So if you're thinking of a direct job in manufacturing, that means that you are working in a job where you're making the furniture, or you are making the truck, or you're making the French fry. You might be on the assembly line, working the machines, or be a quality control inspector. You are directly involved in making the product. A spin-off or an indirect job would be that jobs are created as a result of that product being manufactured. So that can include things like the people who are selling you the materials. So someone who owns a wood mill for maybe the things you use for making furniture, but it can also be the different truck drivers who are delivering and transporting the materials that you need. So those are all jobs that aren't directly manufacturing, but if it wasn't for the person manufacturing those things, those jobs might not exist. So indirect jobs contribute to employment by creating additional job opportunities that are related, but they're not directly involved in making the actual product. So you may be involved in directly making manufacturing, but you also might be indirectly involved in manufacturing as well. So manufacturing accounts for a lot of different jobs in every province, and here you can see is its impact in Manitoba. And then the last graph we have here is the top 10 manufacturing employers in Manitoba by the type of product they manufacture. So all of these products, all of these 10 products are things that are manufacturing. We've just broken them down into subsections. So like I said before, food, these are in the thousands, so it would be 11,000 people working in food manufacturing. Transportation and equipment, so those are people who are working in that subsector of manufacturing. People who make machines, there's fabricated metal products. So yeah, and chemical, you can think about things like pharmaceutical drugs. So if you even think about making a pill of Advil, or maybe you take Tylenol, you're taking raw materials, you're putting them together and putting them into a pill form that wouldn't have existed had you not mixed it all together. And then you're getting a final product, which is that Tylenol pill. So some of those like chemicals and things like that refer to the pharmaceutical manufacturing, and that's also a type of manufacturing. But you can see here that the biggest one, the one where the most people work, is in food manufacturing. And then there's other ones here with like working in wood products, printing and related support activities. So there's one company on the previous slide called WinPack. They print all the labels that go onto different items you buy at the grocery store. So if you even buy a package of meat, or you want to buy some packaged vegetables, and it says on there the best before date, it says the nutritional ingredients in there, WinPack prints those types of stickers that go on there, and they have to keep their facility really, really clean because these are going on food products. So you have to wear hair nets, you have to wear beard nets. It's very clean. You have to wash your hands every time you enter the facility. So lots of different things that are manufactured, and there's many different types of extra things you might have to do depending on the subsector that you're in. So if you're looking for jobs, you can say, well, food, there's a lot of jobs in food manufacturing. And then you can see here that this information is from 2022. It's pretty recent. Some of it might have changed a little bit, but it's probably fair to say that more or less this chart is still probably pretty true in terms of what the highest and lowest are. So who works in manufacturing? Who works in these types of careers? We've got a career view book that I'm going to take us through just a few pages of, a few examples of careers in manufacturing. And then I'm going to give you an opportunity to scan the QR code to digitally download the career view book. So in our career view book, it's going to tell you about different types of jobs. It will explain more about what manufacturing is. And then it will tell you, this is the job, this is what a day in the life of the job might look like. This is how you might get this job. So some of them you might need to go and get a certification, or you might need to go to a school and get some type of education before getting in. Some of them you don't need to do that. But it gives just an idea of what this job is all about and what kind of skills might be required to work in that job. So this is one page of many in the career view book. And like I said, I think I'm just going to show you 3 or 4 of them. So for this one, you can see this example is an assembler or a laborer. So if you're looking for jobs and you see that job title, we hope that this gives you an idea of what you might expect in that job. So you can see, what does a career journey look like? They might need some hands-on experience in manufacturing. Progressing, they might become adept at managing different production stages and have different adaptability. And then it shows that you might be able to transition roles if you demonstrate leadership, and maybe you could become a manager. And so here it says what skills and competencies are needed. You might need some physical stamina. It might involve standing up for long periods of time, or if you're assembling something, then you might be moving your arms quite a bit. So you might need to be able to have a little bit of physical stamina. You're going to need to work as a team because someone's going to be handing over a product that you need to finish up. So you're hoping that they do their job, but then you're able to do your job. Reading comprehension, you might need to be able to understand the operating procedure of what you're doing. And then it says here other jobs like this, which could be production worker, machine operator, warehouse worker, or a laborer. And what this section shows here is that if you're looking for jobs as an assembler or a laborer and you're looking on a job board, this tells you that if you see postings that have these types of titles as well, they're pretty similar. So if you're looking for jobs, these would be similar types of jobs. They might just have a different name for them. And here's another one if you were a machinist. And I won't go through all of them in detail. I'll let you go and check that out in the career view book. But you can see that there's other jobs like this, a tool and die maker or a CNC operator. And the career view book goes through in more detail the different types of maybe things you might need to do before to get that job, the requisites. But so here you can see they learn machining fundamentals and equipment operation. And here we've got another one, being a safety professional. So these people are all in charge of safety. You're going to go around making sure that everything looks the way it's supposed to look, that people are wearing personal protective equipment, that there are safeguards on machines, that you can lock out a machine if something's wrong with it so that nobody uses it when it's broken, and making sure all of those things are working the way they should so people are safe. And this is a very important job, and one that if you're interested in, you could do in manufacturing. So there it says other jobs like this could be a safety coordinator, safety manager, a safety specialist, trainer, advisor, or an industrial hygienist. So those are all similar types of jobs. So I'll give you a moment here to download our career view book using this QR code, so you can take out your phone, and I can also make this accessible after the presentation as well. If you don't have your phone on you, or maybe you don't have Wi-Fi, I'll make it accessible also. But if you download it, you should be able to download it right to your device and then check out all the different types of jobs that are on there. So I give you a snapshot, but I think, yeah, this is 31 pages, lots of different types of opportunities on there, and there's an email at the end of it for CME's workforce development email, so you can reach out if you have any questions. We would love to answer them if you have any questions after reading the book. So I'll give a couple more seconds for people to get that download on your device, and then I'll move on. So here, these are our top 5 labor shortages in the manufacturing sector in Manitoba. So what this means is these are the top 5 jobs manufacturers are looking for. They want to hire people who are going to work in these roles. So if you're looking for a job and you're wondering what keywords to search for when you're out there, these would be good ones to start with. So there's ones like being a laborer, which we had shown as one of the career profiles, being a machine operator, being a manufacturing manager, being a welder, or being a material handler. All of these some of them are pretty similar. Ones like welders, you would need to have some experience before, and you would need to have sort of your tickets before you could do that. Some places might be willing to train you, and that would depend on the company, so it depends. But most likely you would need to get some type of training before getting into welding. But these are the top 5 shortages in the manufacturing sector, which means those are the top 5 in-demand jobs. And these are the top 5 desirable skills that manufacturers are looking for in employees. So they're looking for people who are critical thinkers, who are active listeners, who have reading comprehension, who have good speaking, and who can do the work of monitoring. So I'll go through these a little bit more in detail if you're not sure about what those mean. So critical thinking means using logic and reasoning to identify the strengths and weaknesses of alternative solutions, conclusions, or approaches to problems. So it means if you encounter a problem, you're thinking through, how can I make sure this doesn't happen again? People who are willing to make recommendations about how to make their workplace better or make the process better. Being an active listener means giving full attention to what other people are saying, taking time to understand the points that are being made, and asking questions that are appropriate, and especially not interrupting someone when they're speaking. Reading comprehension means understanding written sentences and paragraphs and work-related documents. A lot of manufacturers have operating procedures or instructions that have photos, similar to what you might see at IKEA in an operating procedure, where if you don't have strong reading comprehension, it's likely okay. Also, a lot of places translate a lot of their operating procedures. So it doesn't necessarily mean reading comprehension in English, but it would mean reading comprehension in potentially your first language. And a lot of places, like I said, they will translate their operating procedures, but you would need to have reading comprehension. And speaking would be talking to others to convey information effectively. So if you have a problem, being able to say, hey, this is what the problem is, this is why I think it is, and being able to articulate what the problem is, or a solution. So people are looking for people who can convey information effectively. And monitoring means assessing the performance of yourself, of others, of the product that you're making, or of the organization to make improvements or take corrective action to make something better. So hopefully that helps understand what those 5 desirable skills are a little bit more. And why manufacturing? So a lot of places have good pay. They also, manufacturing is a job where you can work and get benefits. So that means that your family and your kids potentially could have benefits for things like going to the dentist or other types of things like physiotherapy, and like going to the orthodontist and other things like that. So there's opportunities to make some good money and to have benefits that can help you and your family. A lot of places as well, you could opt out of benefits. But if that's something that you're looking for, you could do that. There's regular hours, so a lot of manufacturers have shifts. So you could either potentially work, when I worked in manufacturing, I worked from 7 to 3:18, and there was a buzzer when to start work and a buzzer when to stop work. And what that allowed for me to do, and for many others, is then you can kind of plan your life around your work. You never have to worry about if you have to pick up your kids from daycare or from school at like 3:30 or 3:40, you might know exactly when you're done work. You don't have to worry about staying later. Other jobs, you might be asked to come in and then maybe they don't have enough work for you and maybe you have to leave. So there's regular hours, so you can really kind of structure your life around those things. Or potentially you might work in an evening shift because maybe you need to be home all day. Maybe you could work a shift that starts at 4 and then goes into the evening and later into the night. So there's regular hours, and that way you can really plan your life around that. There's lots of stability. So a lot of these things that are manufactured, especially here in Manitoba, people need them. So if you think about food manufacturing, in the pandemic, a lot of manufacturers were essential services because people still needed those products to be made. So people had stability in being able to maintain their jobs. And there's a lot of career growth potential. A lot of manufacturers might hire you, and so maybe you really want to be a manager, but you don't have the skills yet. You could start working as an assembler, and you could work your way up and get training either at the company, or they might send you to us, Canadian manufacturers and exporters, and we do training as well. And so they'll pay for you to come do the training, and you'll get paid while you're at the training. And then you can use that to advance your career, potentially become a manager, maybe you could become a director, or if you really like your role in assembly and you just maybe you get a raise for being an expert in that thing that you're doing in assembly, that's great too. So there's lots of different ways that manufacturing can work as a good career choice for you. I wanted to give lots of time at the end for Q&A, so we'll go into that part, and please, if there's anything about the presentation or you need me to go back on a slide and explain something further, let me know. But at this time, I think that we're all set for our Q&A.
Thank you, Mitchell, for that informative presentation. Now we will open it up to the audience. Do we have any questions? Again, please type your questions in the question panel box or raise your hand and we will unmute you so you can ask your question. We welcome both English and French questions and we will try to get through as many as time permits.
Alors, est-ce que nous avons des questions? Encore une fois, veuillez taper vos questions sur le panneau de questions-réponses ou lever la main et nous réactiverons votre micro pour que vous puissiez poser votre question. Nous essaierons d'en traiter autant que le temps le permettra.
Thank you so much, Rava. And we have a question here. I'm going to ask it for you. What resources or programs does CMA offer to help individuals transition into a career in manufacturing?
Yeah, thank you for those questions. I'll need some help with the French one in a translation. For the resources for CME, we mostly work with the member companies. And so mostly when the people we work with are already working in manufacturing. We do have some other types of programming that we do to get people job-ready skills, but a lot of that looks like partnering with organizations like Regional Connections or working with Manitoba Start or Opportunities for Employment and other organizations that kind of do that career readiness. So we help them by giving them the resources that they need to make sure they're training people with the skills that manufacturers are looking for. But most of our programming is for people who are already working in manufacturing. I think we've done a few programs in the past where we do that job training for like 9 months, where you come in and we start from everything, just talking about what is manufacturing, and then you get your safety orientation. We do all sorts of different career profiles. You get to go on tours, but those ones kind of depend on what funding we have. Mostly what we do is try and help with organizations that are already doing that. like Manitoba Start, opportunities for employment, regional connections, and then there's many others. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you so much. And how can someone without a technical background enter the manufacturing industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of jobs, especially in like assembly and being a laborer or being a machine operator, those are ones that are very accessible to people who don't have a technical background, where you can get on-site training. So people will train you with the skills that you need when you're there. And what they're looking for is some of those things I talked about before, like those skills, but really manufacturers are looking for people who are going to show up on time, who are going to come ready to work, who are really interested in wanting to learn more, and they'll train you for all of the rest. So if you come and you kind of you show that you're consistent, you show that you're a hard worker, then you can find a lot of success. And for some companies, what they do is they hire people in clusters. So they might say, okay, well, there's a lot of people here who speak Ukrainian. So we'll hire a group of people and they will work together in like a cell or a group. And that way, if their English isn't as strong, they can still work a part of a group where they all speak the same language. And they might be someone who speaks both languages who can kind of interpret things for the group. So manufacturers are doing their best to make things accessible. And like I said, even if you don't understand like written English, lots of times they will have their instructions for how to use a machine in multiple different languages that would make it more accessible to you. So some jobs, like being a manager, you might not be able to achieve that job without technical experience, but there are many jobs like being an assembly or a laborer that would be accessible if you have limited experience, or even if you are still learning English as a language.
Thank you so much. And we have another question here. Attendee is saying that they have experience in manufacturing, textile, packaging, printing, foods as a manager. Could you please suggest the best way to apply for a job as a manager? I already have certification in supply chain management, Northwest College in Alberta, and how can I apply to those jobs in automotive companies?
Yeah, that's a really great question. We actually have a job portal. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and then I'll see if I can pull it up really quick. But we have our own job portal that is basically a link to all other manufacturing companies who have given us their information. So they're not all in there, but there are quite a number, and I'll show you that on our website, and I will post the link in the chat. Oh, I don't know if I have access to the chat. That's all right. So I'll share my screen again. So if you go on our website, and it'll get you this link as well, you can see the URL is over here, but it's called Manufacturing is Hiring. And so for the person who's talking about, I think you said in printing and other types of things, or if you want to get into automotive companies, then you can go to our Manufacturing is Hiring website, and these are all the subsectors of the industry. So these are all still manufacturing, we've just kind of broken them down, similar to what I presented on that top 10, you can see some of those here, but you can see mechanical and electrical, industrial automation. So if you're interested in automation, you could check that out. I'm trying to see here if I can find automotive. I'm not sure that I see that as a separate one in ours, but transportation and machinery. So if you were interested in that, you could click here, and these are all the companies that work in that industry. And what we've got here is links to their application site. So you can see it here. So if you wanted to work, maybe you wanted to work at NFI, New Flyer, you could click apply here. Hopefully this works. And it will take you right to their careers page where you would then look to see for any openings that they have. So this one, it doesn't look like they have any right now, but you could check it out. See New Flyer, see open positions, and then you could find different jobs like that. So they're looking for a cutting team member, a post-paint assembly team. So here's another one where you could see it's assembly, being an assembler. and the job category is production. So that would be like that first slide I showed. This job would be related to that. And so hopefully from here, you could, if you're interested in the automotive industry, you'd look at transportation and machinery, and you'd go over here. And then you can see there's so many other ones like furniture, energy, oil and gas, chemicals. So you could go through here, and these are all manufacturers, and check them out. There's also videos you could see as well. But this is meant to be sort of a one-stop shop for looking for jobs. Keep in mind that we only post the companies that send us their information. So there's many more manufacturing jobs that you could look at. But this is one that we've tried to make as accessible as possible. So hopefully that answers questions, and hopefully for some of you looking for employment, this can be a really good resource. And I would invite you all, if you're using this and it's not working in a way that is best for you, let us know, because we can make changes to this website to make it work better for what you need.
Thank you so much, Mitchell. And I have one more question. You mentioned entry-level positions, and are those roles suitable for a non-technical individual?
Yes, for a non-technical individual, those entry-level roles would be a great place to start. So some of those might look like working in assembly or working as like a general laborer, and those jobs might look really different depending on which company that you're at. So there are different types of manufacturing, like there's like heavy manufacturing where you can think of things like using lots of metals, and things like light manufacturing, which might be a printing operation. So depending on what you think might be suitable for you, or an industry that you're particularly interested in, you can find jobs as being like a laborer or assembler or a machine operator in all sorts of different industries. And then you can kind of might want to take a look here and say, where can I see myself working? Or if it's more just about having a job, then you might want to check them all out. But yeah, there's lots of entry level. We'll see if maybe we can find some other ones that might be hiring as well. But hopefully, yeah, this is an easy place. And some of them, the link is just to the general website, like this one. So it's not as easy to go straight to the job application. But yeah, definitely entry-level jobs. If you don't have technical experience, that's totally fine. So here's another one, production worker. This one's looking for an accountant. This one's looking for an engineer. So this one you would likely require some training. We could check out this one, production worker, working at Conviron. And then you can see all the responsibilities and duties, and all those things. And then it has the information of how to apply to this role here.
Thank you so much. Do we have any more questions? Please type your questions in the question panel box or raise your hand and we will unmute you. Mitchell, we don't have questions right now more, but if we have any more questions, can we contact you?
Yes, absolutely. Let me pull up our slideshow here again, and I'll show you my contact information, which is at the end. So that's my email there that you could check out if you have any more questions. If you have any more questions about the career review book, or you tried the digital download and it wasn't working for you, I can send you the PDF copy as well. So just let me know if there's anything more that you need, or if you want to be kept up to date on some other activities that we're doing, then I would invite you to do that as well, because we do have some job training opportunities that come by every so often.
Oh, we have one more question now. Do I have to get a certification in manufacturing management as I have it in supply chain?
I think that would sort of depend on which company you go to. I think that if you have a supply chain certification and you have lots of experience in supply chain and in a managerial role, I would like to think that a company would recognize that as having management experience, and that being potentially enough. If a company would like for you to have more of a formal certification, they might hire you and then maybe send you even to us. We have some leadership certification training that we do. But I would think that if you have the experience and you have your credentials in supply chain management, that could be a transferable skill for manufacturing management. And keep in mind, like a lot of our terms in the career review book, they might look different depending on the company and what they do. They might phrase them a little bit differently. But if you have management experience, that would do you a lot of good in applying for a manufacturing management position.
Mhm. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mitchell, for joining us today. And thank you for all the participants for your excellent questions. I'm going to share my screen really quick. If you are not currently a Manitoba Start client, you can call our front desk, visit in person, or complete our online registration form that is on our website for newcomers tab, register for services. Here you can register online by clicking this button. And by registering with Manitoba Start, you will connect with settlement services and have access to career services that can assist you with resume development, career planning, job search strategies, and interview skills. For a list of programs and services offered by Career Services, go under the Career Services tab. As you can see, we offer many workshops and resources here. And lastly, please take a look at our events page to stay up to date on our latest events and current programs. And if you miss a webinar or if you want to watch the recordings of the webinars, you can always go to webinar recordings and click on the webinar you want to rewatch.
Et si vous souhaitez être connecté à la communauté francophone pour obtenir du soutien à l'établissement ou la recherche d'emploi, veuillez contacter EDA. J'espère que vous avez trouvé cela utile.
Don't forget that Manitoba Start is here to assist you by providing services such as personalized career coaching, developing your resume, or job search assistance to find you sustainable employment. Please follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest events. So, on behalf of Mitchell Defer from the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters and the Manitoba Start team, thank you for attending and stay well.